that are more generically useful beyond Serena. One is just the recovering the message that the person, well, not so much born, but conceived. More conceived. Yeah. Mm, 49 times out of 50, no matter how estranged the parents are, including like the ugliest divorces you've ever seen and hatred and the representative, if you do enough work with them, the representatives can recover a sense of, but at that moment there was love. Yeah. Every once in a while you can't. Yeah. The obvious one being, of course, rapes. Rapes are when children are produced from a rape, and you've got to come at it in a different way. But it's very important to our soul selves to have that sense of, at the moment where consciously or unconsciously our parents chose to let life happen and bring us into the world, that it was an act of love. Which is why rape, being the child of rape is a fairly difficult fate. Okay? There are ways to work with that, which I'm not going to get into now. So it was really great that Grace said, yeah, all that was blah, 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 blah. It was very important to them, the blame and who's at fault, and but it all was very important to them. And I let it go on a little while because I wasn't sure if some of the pattern of disrespect between the two was relevant to the patterning. But in the end, most of it was blah, 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 blah. And most of it was to sort of let them say enough, acknowledge the truth between the relationship enough, so that when I presented the question of, okay, take a moment, all this aside, was this child conceived in love, then they could congruently say yes. And if they hadn't had a chance to say the previous, they might not have been able to say that, because there would have been other things that felt excluded or not included. Yeah? But to the child, it's kind of the only thing that matters. And that the parents can kind of look at each other with some kind of respect. We have not had these classic sentences yet. We should get them eventually. But the sort of thing where even in the cases of enormous estrangement or ugly divorces and blah, 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 the sentence is eventually that you want the client, the child of the parents to hear things like, thank you for our daughter, son. Or if the estrangement is really, really, really high, to have the parent to be able to look at the child and say, when I look at you, I love your father in you. So I can't say I love your father, but I love those parts of you that reflect your father in you.
Wow. Still working on that one.
Best if we can figure out some way to have the parents in just a minimal amount of respect. And again, often it's really found when you can finally say, I hate you for everything ever, but thank you for our daughter. Because without this person, you couldn't have the child, right? So I wanted to lift that one up. The other one I want to lift up is sort of towards the end. I've never done it quite that way before, but this is something I got from Stefan Hausner. And I think he gets it from Bert Hellinger, but Stefan used it a lot. And it made a very big difference to me and my family when I got a hold of this healing sentence, which is looking at your parents who may have suffered enormously as a result of having been in a relationship with each other. Yeah, which was the case here with the great grandparents. They suffered as a result of this relationship. My parents suffered a great deal due to their enmity and hatred of each other. They injured each other enormously. This is a difficult burden for the child. Yeah, for me to be here, these two people had to, you know. So the healing sentence for this is, you know, dear mother and father, or whatever the relationship is, dear mother and father, I see what it cost you. It being my life, right? I see what it cost you. I leave it with you. Thank you for my life. So the whole thing about how for you to be here, these two people had to have this injurious experience of each other can be left with them. Yeah. So, dear mother and father, I see what it cost you. I leave it with you with love and respect. Thank you for my life. Yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to lift up those two, because those, again, these are like consistent things you're going to see over and over and over again. And when I was finally able to do that in my heart with my parents, that was a very big deal for me. And it wasn't even my constellation. He just used that a lot. You know, he was doing, I told you, he's the one who, by the way, I should put his name up, Stefan Hausner. He's on your mailing list. I'm in your bibliography. German, sweet human being. If you ever have a chance to go to one of his trainings, he's got a heart of gold. Oh, I love Stefan. He's been very sweet to me, but he's the one who's kind of famous for doing the illness constellations. He's got the book, Even If It Costs My Life. So I went to a workshop in which he was doing it all about illnesses. That's all, the only really things he was looking at. And as I said, he always started with just the nuclear family, the mother, the father, the siblings, and the client, and the symptom. That's the way he would inevitably start. And probably half of them would come down to that, recognizing something was off between the parents. The symptom was a way to manage that brokenness between the parents, and that healing sentence of, dear mother and father, I see what it cost you. Thank you for my life. I leave it with you. Thank you for my life. Yeah. So very often that was, you know, his healing movement for dealing with this stuff. Anyway, I wanted to lift those two movements up for you because you will probably find yourself going back to those.
Leslie, as far as reference materials go,
Yeah.
Is there a particular, maybe a sample constellation online to show our friends, to give them a sense of what it's about before we ask them to do constellations with us for practice?
Yes, I mean everything on that bibliography.
No, I mean like an online YouTube video that they can
Right.
see, not something that they have to watch. Read.
There's one. It's on. It's not on your bibliography, but if you go to the West Coast Constellations intensive page, there is a What Are Constellations page. I've put together a lot of good intro materials. And as you can tell now, Kelly, capturing constellations on video is really hard.
Yeah.
So there isn't much out there. Because even when you video it, if you weren't there and you didn't see it, it just doesn't make much sense. So I give you this reference with like a caveat that it may not do what you're hoping it will do for them.
Yeah.
But the best one I have found is on that page, www.westcoastconstellations.com, and it's the What Are Constellations page. There's a video there that's, I think, is labeled the male lineage video, I think. It's short. It's videotaping, you know, just a constellation that happens to be about putting together the male lineage for somebody. That's like, I went that's kind of coherent. And it was short, and there's a little narration going on. So watch it and see if it fits the bill.
Awesome.
But you might think, ooh, there's a business opportunity here. And no, truly, this is actually, Stefan Hausner has a series of videos. They're on DVD, and you can purchase them, but they're high production values. My friend Allison Maisie produced them, and they're done very professionally with a lot of explanation.
Cool.
I have that set, so I could probably lend it to people.
I have it too.
You have it? Yeah. The first one in particular is all like an introduction to Constellation stuff, and so he explains it. He's interviewed. There's a little bit of watching it.
Okay.
Very high production values, well made.
Can you just order it online?
It would be at Allison Maisie's website, which is Constellation Arts. And then, I mean, there's a gabillion on Hellinger DC of Hellinger teaching.
Outright.
And some of them have constellations on them. I don't know which ones, or if anyone has seen one that you went, that was the one. That's what really, probably something you buy as a DVD is going to be better than anything you're going to see on YouTube. Because somebody's put some time into having some narration, some explanation, some context. Yeah, but that's all I can offer. Okay, so main orders of love in Serena's Constellation.
The logging.
Yeah. Little bit of balance of giving and taking between the great-great-grandparents. Just the balance of the relationship. Yeah.
Seniority.
What?
Seniority too.
Right? Yeah, getting the grandmother back in proper position. Yeah. Okay, good. Main shifts that you notice, moments where something happened and things started moving.
And grandfather, great-grandfather said to the grandmother, I could have taken her and put her in an orphanage, and then the ability to look at their child.
Right. And of course, the one we've already gone over, which is you were conceived in love. That changed everything. Finally, the grandmother was able to kind of look up and Also, it was just a little shift, but the parents were looking at the grandmother, and she was like, make them go away, right? And so I just took off the pressure and had them start interacting with each other. She calmed down, and she could kind of watch and see what was going to unfold. So you do want to find ways to take the pressure off and figure out what's very, 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 very frequently the movement of trying to reconnect a child with the parents. Before that can happen, the parents got to deal with each other. There's something that's got to happen between the parents. Yeah? Because what the child is really needing is to see if the parents are safe with each other, if they are respectful of each other. What another shift, just so we can look at?
As the grandmother, the shifting meaning of all that movement. So there's a way by constraining me over there.
Yeah.
You intensified you weren't letting me diffuse it, and it got super uncomfortable, but then it was revealed what it really was. And then you offered outside soothing to kind of help me.
Right, I know you'd go bonkers if I didn't support you a little bit. Yeah.
So I don't know that it was a shift, but it was a revelation, at least as a person experiencing it, of dynamics.
Right. And connected to that, great-grandmother was kind of like, I kind of don't know who this is or something like that. And then this happens very often. When I sit the child down, the parent finally goes, oh, this is a child that may have some relevance to me. It doesn't necessarily mean it makes the whole thing change,
Yeah.
but that you reported, oh, she's down there. Oh,
Right, because there was this big person giving me the evil eye.
yeah. So often someone being sat down with respect to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you will do that and they'll be like, the movement won't be accepted and you'll have to probably let go of it. But 9 times out of 10, just getting the child to sit down, as long as it's not too close and you're not forcing them into proximity and that sort of stuff, you know, it like, oh, I'm the child, this is the adult. Oh, okay. Some stuff is starting to make sense here. Okay. Memorable healing sentences. We've been over a couple. What else do you remember?
When we were in the line at the end, it felt important when, because I had been orbiting her, when I said, I have my parents.
Yes. Very frequently. Yeah, you say that to the younger ones, I have my parents, which means that the younger ones don't have to be the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the child, but in this case, the grandchild.
Something in the marriage ceremony felt right. I'm not quite sure. I mean, the goal of that was to kind of bring more of a healing into that relationship dynamic and to the daughter.
No, not healing. They never got married.
Acknowledged
They never got married.
the union.
Marriages are important. Yeah. So obviously, even if they had the option, they might never decided to get married. Like people do that all the time. They don't get married when they get pregnant. But the child having the lineage, the child having some sense of the ritual union of the two.
Mm.
So it's not just a one night stand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And people get conceived all the time. Bert Hellinger goes on in this at some length in the book Acknowledging What Is, which is a little book. And it's if all you've been reading is Love's Hidden Symmetry, keep doing that. But Acknowledging What Is a very interesting book. It's quite short because it's an interview. It's not a case studies book. It's an interview by a skeptic who's kind of really appreciating what he does, but like not sure about all of it, right? And she comes from a clinical background, so she's got really smart questions to ask. And he goes on this interesting rant at one point around how we don't think sex is important anymore. It used to have a lot of weight.
Mm.
When you had sex, it was, you could get pregnant, things, it had weight. Okay. And now it just doesn't very much. There's protection. There's not many rules for women in the way there used to be. And he would keep saying, of course, we're very glad for those developments. It's not like the oppression of women and not having birth control was a good thing, but I miss the sense that this act has weight. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, do you mean to say that you wish we didn't have birth control? He's like, no, it's not exactly what I want to say, but, you prefer the days when women will held captives in their families and honor killings? You like those? No, not exactly. Wow. But I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's classic. Anyway, and I really appreciated what he was trying to get at there. And through the ritualization, just the sense of a moment of weight happened between these two people. Mm-hmm. And our ritual way of acknowledging that is ultimately marriage. But, in this case, and in many cases, marriage doesn't happen. And it's not like we retroactively married them or anything like that. Just that we did a ritual acknowledgement of the union. And the purpose, there are many purposes to ritual, but one of them is that it is a public act. Yeah. And that gives the act weight. To do it in front of people, to ask their support, it's embedded in the community. And this all is like fairyland stuff now, because we don't have any sense of this anymore. And anything. Oh, go off go off to the town hall and get married or have a big wedding. No one really cares either way, right? And in fact, a lot of these big weddings are just so appalling that we're kind of glad they all went off to town halls, right? So the recovering of, and I'll tell you as a priest who has done weddings, okay? I have officiated at weddings. The difference between a couple who are coming sort of entangled in their fantasies about marriage versus a couple who come to me with their weight and a sense of what they're up to and what they want to stand in front of their families and say is the difference between a sheer piece of drudgery on my part that I'm doing just because I have to and I hate doing it, but oh my God, those weddings suck, versus something I am so honored to preside at. Yeah. And I can go on a long rant on the systemics of the bridal industry and how it's ruining marriage in the United States. It's just, it's an evil. The couples, when they do premarital counseling, they'd sit down and say, hi, nice to meet you. Hi, nice to meet you. Before we say anything, I just want to tell you all, the bridal industry is evil and is out to get you. And I'm going to ask you to be strong and resist. Okay? And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's crazy. I'm spending $10,000 on the dress because I dreamed of this when I was 12. And I'm like, oh, God, help us. Right?